All right, we have with us Jorge from Scoop Me Out, a podcast about expats who come from another country, move to a new place, and share their experiences. Jorge, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Robert. It's
Yeah,
an honor.
it's the honor is mine. So, uh, thanks for being on. I wanted to start off with you're an expat, you're from Costa Rica, and you've moved to China. Are you
Yeah,
able to tell us about your journey?
yeah, absolutely. It all started about more than 2 years ago. I was working for a corporate company. I was doing pretty well, but deep inside me, I knew that I wanted something more. And I have always been a guy that I describe myself as adventurous, and I'm very curious. I was living in my apartment one night, I still remember, and I got a text message from a friend who was already living here in China saying like, are you looking for new opportunities? And I was like, the
Are you
universe is
recruiting
saying,
me?
yeah, yeah. And we got to a talk, and he said that there is a job opening in the company that he's working on. It was a startup company back then, and he described me his life here and the kind of job that he's doing, the ups and downs of living in China, the ups and downs of the job, And I started, like, he planted a seed. That's how I would describe it. Because after like 1 month, I was on a plane coming to China. It was a tough decision. It was pretty tough. I spent like a lot of time deciding you know, analyzing what things in my life I'm gonna give up, the life that I was having in this company and in Costa Rica, for the things that I didn't know how life would be in China. It doesn't matter how much he would describe how life is here, uh, until I came here, is when I would realize how things go. Anyway, I packed up everything in my company, in my home, and I was coming to China one month after that.
So you've talked a lot about, you're kind of humming and hawing about these decisions. Like, oh, do I go there? Do I stay here where I have security? Or
Mm,
do I go in search of the adventure? And you had mentioned how your friend had described China, the pros and the cons of it. And
right.
again, you're kind of wrestling with these things in your head, but what's the difference between thinking about something and experiencing something?
Yeah, yeah. It's so different,
Mm-hmm.
because there is a limit on how much you can think about something.
Right.
Like, you need to consider things like how you're gonna feel when you're there, and the only way to know that is by actually trying it, And that was a risk, because I was giving my comfort in this company and in my country to come to a place that I have absolutely no idea. And to be honest, Robert, I had a lot of stereotypes
Mm.
for coming to China. I had this idea of how things kind of handle here. And, the very first week that I spent here, my mind was blown away. There are so many things,
Yeah.
so many cool things here, the tech, the pace of life is absolutely amazing.
Well, so you'd mentioned that, you had these sort of preconditioned notions and ideas of China,
Yeah.
and that, in your first week, this was all just shattered. So what was the first thing that you can recall that you're like, whoa, gee, I got that wrong?
Mhm. Yeah, I think the very first thing, it was like the first weekend.
Mm.
I wanted to go out, have a lunch by myself, and I was like, yeah, I found this place, and I wanted to pay with credit card, and they were like, no, we don't accept this here. First of all, the language, right? It was all mostly signs, but then they were trying to tell me, we don't accept credit cards here. They don't use that here, They use this system to pay. They have WeChat and Alipay. Those are the two apps that we use to pay. And it was like, well, now how do I handle this? I haven't used cash for so long. I was used to use my credit card, And I was kind of pretentious also, because I was thinking like, oh my God, I'm gonna make so much points on my credit card, And now it's like, well, no, down to earth. We use an app for it. So that was, I still remember, that was the very first thing. It was a change. And I started to realize that, well, I need to adapt, and I need to reinvent myself.
Right. Yeah. Because again, you have we have our established norms, the things that we're used to, that we're comfortable with, be it commerce or communication.
Yeah.
And then, now you've gone to, dare I say, another world, right? At least it could feel that way. And then you're like, oh my God, like there's one universal game that everybody can play, and that's charades. You know what I mean? Like kind of, right. And I guess you're having to do a lot of that. And then you sort of think like, okay, I imagine you're like, I'm going to have to discard a lot of the things that I know in exchange for something that I can now learn. So how, like when you start something new, like a new job, I always find I'm dead tired like that first week.
Yeah.
So you come to this, like I say, in my eyes, what would appear to me a new world. How tired were you after that first week?
Super tired, especially, well, the very first 3 days is all about the jet lag, dealing with the jet
Right.
lag. I am like 14 hours time difference with Costa Rica.
Mm.
So those 3 days, like I arrived here at 10 p.m. and the next day I was going to work already.
Right.
To like settle down, get to know like my apartment and the city. No, it's immediately go to work. And here people work from Mondays to Saturdays in like
Oh, really?
production facilities. So I arrived on a Thursday and I was already going to work for the next 2 days. Super tired. And here's the thing, like due to my visa situation back then, I could only stay in China for 1 month. So I knew, like, even though I was already moving here, I knew that I had to go out of China again back to Costa Rica and repeat this cycle of, getting so tired back then. And I would only stay for 1 week in Costa Rica and then come back. So yeah, at
Right.
the beginning, it was very tiring, like physically tiring.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is, for me at least, when I'm learning something new, all the things that are going on in our brain, like we're really having to. I mean, we talk about we only use so much of our brain.
Mm.
You immerse yourself because that's what it is. It's not like I'm taking an online class, a French class. It's like you are dropping yourself into this world. Everything is new. So what was the hardest part for you to kind of pick up on?
I think the hardest part was language
Right.
at that point. Yeah. Because, I was used to live outside of Costa Rica. I was making a lot of trips back there to the US.
Mm-hmm.
So I was used to, be outside my country. But when I came here and I realized that, well, I wanted to eat some snacks in the street, and these people, they don't speak English. They don't speak English. And I was trying to, like, okay, I'm just gonna go use Google Translate, but we don't have access to Google Translate. We're
Oh,
living like,
yeah.
China itself is its own world. It's like a bubble, you know.
Hmm.
So it was very new to me that I have to, okay, now what do I use? Because I need to talk to these people. I cannot
Right.
just keep it, like talking with them with signs, with my hands. So I think that was the very first thing. And I tried I started to learn some Mandarin, some basic words so that I can get through life. Because, they say that the very first year when you're living abroad is when you are just discovering things, and everything is so new, so fresh, so shiny. But then the second year is when you realize that you finally, okay, I'm settling down here.
Right.
And I didn't want to wait until the second year to feel that I was getting there, because Mandarin, there's still also this stereotype that, right, that is one of the toughest languages in the world. So I wanted to, just learn some basic phrases so that I can get through my day on the
Right.
weekend. Yeah.
Yeah. So, because like you say, language, to your point, rather, language is something that we kind of take for granted for.
Mm.
We take for granted that we can just communicate with everybody in our world, or I certainly do. And then to get it, all of our basic utilities, necessities, we can do it with little, frustration or whatever. But now it's a new language, both written and spoken. And you think to yourself, okay, like, for example, if I have to really go to the washroom, I don't even have to think. Like, I'm like, I know where to, you know what I mean? And then, and then now you're in a totally different everything. And it's like, oh my God, like when I need something right now, I don't have that instantaneous ability. So in terms of like personal skills, I imagine you probably learned a lot about yourself as well. Sort of.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of like learning and adapting. And then
Yes.
because even though I was might able to, to walk through a situation in a restaurant where I was getting the bill, if I go to eat outside, like in the street, which is pretty common here, and it's one of the tastiest food that I have had, food, street food, it's totally different thing. You don't get a bill. You don't get people like, because they speak even so different than the things that you learn from a guy that created this Mandarin course outside of China. So I think it's a lot of learning and adapting, and it's super fast. I think like you cannot be very agile. Like every single week you need to think about what you did the past week, and then okay, what can I do different so that I can feel more that I'm settling down.
Feel more natural.
Feel more natural. Yeah, exactly.
Because I mean, where I live, a lot of the people around me look like me and talk like me. And I don't feel like I'm out of place. Whereas I imagine that when you were in China for this first year, you might have felt at place, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very funny thing, because it doesn't matter how much time you have been living here in China. You jump into a metro, and people are going to start taking photos of you because you are that person who is different. You look different, and it's like, well, I have a beard, right? So it's like, oh, what is this? And you see kids trying to reach out to touch my beard. It's like, wow, whoa. The first month you laugh at it, but then you get used to it. You also understand like you are the guy who is different here,
right?
So it's not something that you need to push people, or like me pretending like, hey, I live here. You're supposed to know that I have a home here, that I go to work, I have the same benefits as you guys. No, you're still the outsider, and the more like east, I would say, you go to, or west. Well, it depends actually.
That is a confusing one. You're like, is it east? Is it west? Yeah, because we're seeing it through our lens, of course.
Right, exactly. Your lens. The more you need to adapt yourself. It's kind of like being like a chameleon, Yeah.
Again, not speaking from necessarily my experience. Actually, I can't speak to my experience. So a friend of mine, he's Bajan, and he lives in Barbados. Or excuse me, he has roots in Barbados. He lives here in Canada. And I went to Barbados, and I was experiencing the culture there. Like I wasn't staying in a resort. And I'm like when I think about it, I was one of the only white people I remember seeing when I was outside of the resort.
Yeah.
But still I kind of had that, I could go to a place where people still kind of look like me. Now imagine if you're an immigrant to, Canada, and you're from a place like, I don't know, Congo. I have no idea, but a place where, you have your way of seeing things, and then everywhere you go, people are like, "Wow, you've lived in Canada for 5 years. You can speak perfect English, but you look different." And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, he's an immigrant." How exhausting that would be,
Yeah, it is very exhausting, mentally exhausting. And here is where that's a very interesting topic for me, because it's culture, like like, Robert, what is your culture? You know, you, I, this
I
is
don't
very
know.
personal. Like, I cannot say that my culture is Costa Rica just because I was born there, you know, because
Yeah.
what if you have been living outside of your country for many years? Then what culture do you have? And I've seen this with, like, you know, when you are outside of your country, you get like kind of a community of expats as well, right? And you start to see some trends there, because people say like, oh, Japanese people, they are so obedient and so organized.
Mm.
And German people are like this, and Americans are like that, you know. But so if I am someone who is very obedient, that means that I have Japanese culture.
Right.
Like, for me, it doesn't make sense, because it doesn't make sense because you're defining your culture from where you were born. Basically, your passport. That's it. You know, I like to say that we are like a mix of cultures. Like, you decide what culture you have, you know, and it can be things that you learn from your trips. I had the opportunity to travel quite a lot while I'm being here in China, and you know, I cannot say that Filipinos are like this way, or Singapore's are like this. No, no, they all have different things. And sure, each country is going to have their own kind of way to do things, but it doesn't mean that you have to adapt to that culture and you have to make it your own, you know.
I think too that we are such sponges to the world around us. Like you said, you know, what's my culture? And I almost instantaneously said, I have no idea. Because
Mhm.
again, I'm part of the larger society, which
Yeah.
is a word that was introduced to me from a guy I interviewed, Ellis Ross. Larger
Mhm.
society is not necessarily like you're a settler or you're a
Mhm.
white person. Because really, if you break down white, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because if you told me 600 years ago, I'm Scottish, that I'm a white person and therefore I am the same as an English person, I'd probably punch you in the face. You know what I mean? Like, because it's like they were at war with each other.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as we kind of expand in terms of, you know, time and just where we're going with information, we're
Mhm.
realizing that, okay, maybe this is how I see things, at least, that we're more, we're a sponge to what it is that we like and identify with. For
Yeah.
example, I love heavy metal music,
Mhm.
and a lot of the heavy metal music I listen to is from the United States. So does
Mhm.
that make me American, or does that make me a metalhead?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So again, we see that, you know, culture, what we can identify as, it's more kind of independent to who we are. And with
Mhm.
things like the internet, we can find our niches so much better.
That's right. That's right. You know, and well, one of the things that I have noticed is like people saying, "Oh, we don't do things like that here."
Mm,
So they're already putting themselves into, you know, this group. Like, we don't do this, but let me ask you, how do you want to do it?
mm,
Because just because you see people around you doing things like that, it doesn't mean that you have to do it if it doesn't serve you, right?
right.
So
Right.
I think it's more about choices, you know. Just to give you a little bit more background also, even though I came here as an engineer, I now am working as a career coach, and through my clients that I'm working with clients here, and I like to challenge them with this, like, because they will say, oh, well, it's the way we do it, but how
Mm,
do you want to do it? Because you have a choice. You adapt to that thing that people are doing around you, or you create your own set of rules.
yes. Are your choices yours, or are they your country's or your
Mm,
family's? You know,
exactly. Yeah.
like, I love my family. They're wonderful, but I talk trash about them all the time on here. I sometimes feel, because, you know, they've made choices based on what they think they're supposed to do. And really, now I'm a parent myself. I'm realizing, you know what? Like, I want my daughter to make the choices that she wants to do within reason of morality and all that stuff. But
Yeah.
it's like, if she wants to be a kindergarten teacher, like, let's support her on that dream. If she wants to be a singer, you
Yeah.
know, let's support her on that dream.
Mhm.
But obviously prepare her for the future that she might not be Mariah Carey or whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, at the same time, how can we encourage and empower people's choices rather than try and pressure them into what they should be doing.
Yeah, what they should be doing or what they need to be doing. Because once you decide that you are going to follow your family rules or your country rules, then you start to think and believe that I need to do this, I need to follow this path, I need to work from Monday to Saturday, because that's how we do it here.
Yes.
Who says that? Only you inside you. Yeah.
So at what point did you have this revelation of going from I'm supposed to be an engineer, that's what I should be doing, to wait a minute, I want to be a career coach?
Yeah. It happened about 1 year ago.
Okay.
And to be honest, I'm not sure if it was all related with COVID, because it's a lot of people had some revelations because of COVID, but I was already trying to get to my next career move. And I was very convinced that I wanted to open my own medical device company, like a design and manufacturing company. And I had already like this big dream of mine. I had already settled down. Okay, what's going to be my very first step? And my next move was like learning about, how you develop your idea into a prototype and then move on. If it works at the end, then yeah, sure, you create a company, blah, blah, blah. And when I asked myself why I want to do this, it was all about, well, I want to help people, but that's very vague. I want to help people. That's very vague.
Right.
So I hired a coach to help me out with this because I was having so much stress. Like, okay, I want to go to Australia. There is a school here for entrepreneurs, but COVID. So how am I gonna handle this? And how am I gonna get a visa to get to work in Australia? And there were so many things that were uncertain back then that I was so much under pressure, stress, and my life was not in the best place that I wanted to be. I was not having fun with this dream of mine.
So, and just to sort of timestamp it, is this before COVID that you're sort of wrestling with these ideas, or is this?
I think
this during
now that you said that, I think it was like during when COVID just started, right? Here in China, it started before going outside the world. But I was traveling in Europe, and I came back to China. I met with my girlfriend, and we were like, okay, now let's go to Bali because things are not doing great. So let's take a break, And so we spent like 22 days in quarantine in Bali, and then back here in China. And I guess that was the time that I finally got some moment for myself to think about, okay, what do I want and why do I want it?
Right.
And it was so blurry back then, it was so blurry. And I started to talk to people back in there, and it was my cousin who said, well, it seems that you might find useful to talk to a coach to help you like dig out what is it that you want to do and why. So that's how I started. Yeah.
So, okay. So this is happening. I love where we're going with this. So you call up this career coach. Okay. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. She is a life coach. And it's funny because she is based in Costa Rica. And yeah.
Serendipity.
Yeah. So we're doing these calls. It took me like 6 months. I hired her for 6 months, and it completely turned me around because I was like, when she asked me, I still remember the very first session, who are you? And I was like, well, I'm an engineer. And I think I have a very square mindset. That's how I used to describe myself,
right?
My profession, my major back then. And like, it's funny because it's like I'm square. I have a square mind.
I'm a shape. I have boundaries, and it's only within here.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. It was just because I have always been seen like someone who is very organized, well organized, and planning and things like that.
Your qualities were who you were. That was your identity.
That was my identity. Correct. Right. Yeah. So it's like she started to like shake all of these beliefs that I used to have about the things that I should do or that I need to do. And I have never thought back then, like in my life, thinking, what do I want?
Mm.
What do I actually want? What do I really want to do? And it is a scary process, because I saw myself being resistant to this thing, like someone else trying to like set me up a different mindset, even though she was not like pushing anything.
Right.
It was all of me, because it
Right.
was all me, like figuring out, oh my God, I've been doing this without any reason, without any purpose. And I was like seeing for example, I was seeing my curriculum as a checkbox.
Yeah.
So I got this and that. So next job, next career path.
So what was more important at this point that I guess before this revelation, the journey or the destination?
Hmm. Well, I realized that it's more important the journey.
Yes.
It is
Yeah.
important to know, like you need to define your destination, but you need to be flexible enough, like a chameleon, to be able to adapt, and you just take care of how you do it, like enjoy the process, because you might find out that you get what you wanted or something even better that
Mm.
you have no idea what it is, right?
Wow. Yeah. And you've used that metaphor quite a bit, right? Of the chameleon.
Hmm.
And I think, I know we've just met, and this is actually kind of cool because it's like, oh, I'm getting to know this person in 26 minutes. What a privilege. But it sounds like you and I have that in common, of this chameleon sort of like fit in personality. And maybe that's gotten us far in our lives. But have we ever truly asked who we are? And when we do that work, and anybody can do that work. I mean, who am I, right? Am I a product of my accomplishments, or am I more than that?
Right.
And then you start to strip down, like, what brings me joy?
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, but helping people and listening to people has always brought me joy. But then, of course, I think about, where am I? I'm supposed to be making six zeros, but I'm only making 5, and I get lost up in all the thinking, like you've talked about, and forgetting my purpose.
Mm.
So it sounds like you and I perhaps have been avoiding what our real purpose is.
Mhm.
What do you think?
Yeah, I used to avoid that purpose because
Mhm.
it's time consuming, it's energy consuming. Back then it was energy consuming. I just didn't want. I was escaping from working
Yes.
so
Avoidance.
much. Yeah, and just going to the weekend and just go out and party,
Yeah.
whatever, and you don't have time to think about what you want. And it's something that we don't it seems that we are not doing it on purpose, but you are consciously, you are, and until you sit down and you start to think, okay, why am I in this world? Where is my purpose here? And you actually write it down. You need to write it down, because you might forget, that next week it might be something different. And trust me on this, like when you write it down 3 months later, you go back to it and you're like, okay, I'm still there, or maybe something different. So it's not something that you like work on it for a few hours and then you're done, because life gets in your way. Life throws you things that you might want to do or to try it out, and maybe your purpose is like being shaken there. So it was not until I find out what was my real purpose that it has always been there. And I use a lot this analogy with chameleons. I even have a tattoo in my arm, uh, and it's not because you have to adapt yourself to the situation and just like pretending that you are following the rules of that society, of that country you are in now, but it's more like, hey, you have your core essence inside you,
Right.
so don't give up on that. Yeah, sure, maybe you can change some colors here and there so that you can adapt yourself to meeting new friends, having to stop using credit cards and start using apps like this. There are so many things that you do need to change, but your core essence is still there.
Well, it almost sounds like, well, it does sound like you found your core essence, because there's so many masks that we wear. It's like, mothers are amazing. they're just amazing because they know their children better than their children know themselves. And, you know, at least that's certainly true of my mother. And, you know, she knows my essence better than me. And I can wear all these different masks and try to fit in and be liked by all these different people. But, you know, I'm very blessed that my mother will always love and like me no matter who I am. And she knows who I am when I don't. And when I finally strip it away and I'm like, you know what? I'm at this point in my life where it's too bad for the people who don't like me. Like, I mean that sincerely. Like, it's too bad. I mean, it would be great to get along with everybody, but that's not humanly possible, you know. But now I'm sure of myself in a way that I can't even explain, you know. And again, it's that purpose. So what was your purpose that you wrote down?
Yeah, my purpose, like, is more about empowering people to get out of their square, you know. And I do it by shaking this square into whatever shape they want, whatever shape serves you, you know. It doesn't have to be a circle. It can be something so random. And my shape, Robert, is right now is like a spaghetti.
Yeah.
That's the shape that serves me, you know, because I define myself like before I was going from point A to point B, but when you boil this spaghetti, it becomes like this twisted and it's so different shape that it means that you can take so many different paths. And at the end, you might go to somewhere that is completely even better than you thought and you could imagine, you know. And you know, spaghetti are like entangled, so it doesn't mean that you have to follow that path, that specific path, step 1, 2, and 3 that you define. You can take a different one, you know. So that's where you become more flexible. So for me, that's what I'm trying to do with my life. I think that's my purpose, you know, like challenges people to get outside their square.
Well, I'm so glad I've met you because I mean, I'd say we have a similar purpose. As a general rule that I've started using, I treat every person that I meet like they're going to teach me something. And if you have that mindset, you could get pretty damn far in life, you know. So having that open mind and sort of like, you know, I have no idea. When you face a problem with an open perspective, you're going to find out that you've solved that problem, you know, before you're like, oh my God, I solved that problem. I'm already on to the next one. And that's what problem solving needs. So you start doing this, you find your purpose. You're an expat from Costa Rica, and now you're in China. So how do you integrate your purpose into where you are?
Yeah, it's mostly because I have seen here. Well, the reason I came here that was attracted to me before, it was because of the fast-paced environment.
Right.
You know, and for me, when they say like you need to work Monday to Saturday, from 8 to 8, I was like, okay, sure, that's no big problem. I'm gonna do this for the next years, and then I'm gonna have so much money that I can do whatever I want. Finally, back then I haven't even defined what do I want. You know, it was just something in the clouds. You know, so the people here, most of them, they have a similar mindset, you know. And I've seen people complaining like, oh, this life is so fast paced, and life in Shanghai, for example, like people are always rushing. And so that's for me, that's an opportunity, you know, because what I've seen people, younger people saying that they don't want to work their whole life. They don't want to work for so many hours. Who says that, you know? And that's when you see like a change in their generation, right?
Right. Well, I think that change, you know, this Cambrian explosion of sort of the new way we're going to do things is upon us. You know, people are like, if nobody wants to work a 9 to 5 job anymore. They want to do their own thing. But then when they find out, oh shoot, I can figure out my own thing, you know, the world is changing. But like you said, I want to work from the moment I wake up till 2 hours before I go to bed. Why? It's because we want to shut off our minds and distract ourselves from, you mentioned it, our purpose. right? Because when we sit with ourselves and we know we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, we put on Netflix and our mind is like, it's on that, not on what we love doing. Like, I love doing this. You love doing this. And that's all you want to do, right?
Yeah.
That and be a parent, take care of my kid, of course. But anyways, we shut it off because there's that existential fear of, holy shit, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm running out of time right, on this earth.
Yeah, and that's when people think that they need to, like they say, I like to be busy. And so they fill their schedule with all of these like big or small tasks, whatever, just to pretend that they're being productive.
Right.
But they're not doing the things that they actually want because they haven't even discovered what is it that they really want.
Well, think too, I mean, some of the best paying jobs in the world are not, here, this is coming from me, of course. So some of, you got to do that, right? The safety. Some of the best paying jobs in the world are lack some of the most meaning. Like, for example, cold calling people to sell them hand sanitizer, right? We have to, and no, obviously we need that, but you have to justify what you do to have that sort of mental clarity and that mental wellness, right? We have to justify what it is that we do. We have to make meaning out of it. And me, I'm a teacher, a school counselor, and all I have to do is just tell myself, man, I really made somebody's day today. And it's like, that's all that I need, right? I don't need to I would love to make lots of money. Who the hell wouldn't? But I'd rather be doing something I believe in and not getting paid a whole lot than doing something I hate and getting paid hand over fist. Because at the end of the day, at the end of our lives, we have to look back and say, this privilege of being alive, did I use it to make the world a better place? That's to me is the ultimate. If you can ask that question and say, hell yeah, I did, then you can enter the afterlife, my friend.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people are looking to leave a legacy in this world, which is not related to how I'm going to have kids. That's my legacy because I passed my last name. What?
Yeah.
So it's something more than this. It's something meaningful, And the other day, someone asked me, what did you do meaningful in your first month of the year? And I stopped myself like, wow, I have never asked myself this. And I felt like I didn't do anything meaningful in January. And then I started to think, well, yeah, I did this and there. But now I wake up every single morning and I love to journal. And I ask myself the same question: what can I do meaningful today? And meaningful for me is the cross, when you find something that makes you happy, but also it makes you fulfill by serving others, So it's both things, something for you and something for others.
Yes, there has to be, like, I don't necessarily believe, please correct me on this, in selflessness. I'm just going to give it all away to charity. Like, you have to have, unless, either you have some, you need some support there or whatever. But anyways, a very special person has to be so selfless that that's who they are versus somebody who, I want to give back, but I am going to get something out of this. Right. I think even Stephen Hawking talked about that in his book, the ego gene or something like that. Like, we do, there's always a transaction, right? And when I help you out, Jorge, I'm feeling great about what I just did. I'm getting something in return. It's not just like here, take all my time and I'm going to go home and be like, fuck, I gave Jorge all of my time.
Right.
There's a transaction that's going on for there to be happiness and purpose. Like you said, there has to be a two-way street.
Yeah, it has to be a win-win scenario.
Exactly.
Because nowadays, when you find out that money is secondary, the first thing is time.
Yeah.
That is like the new currency. So if I'm spending 1 hour talking to you, talking to my friends, talking to my boss, what am I gonna get?
Yeah.
I have to think about it.
So now, because I want to bring it back to, this dovetails so nicely with actually why we initially started talking, and that was COVID. And so the country China goes into lockdown. Do you feel that you kind of go into like a bit of a lockdown as well, like this sort of almost meditative state, or what was your connection to that as the country was going into it?
You know, I didn't have that much of a lockdown when I came back to China, because even though I couldn't travel outside of China or to another city,
Right.
I found myself that, well, the rules here in this city were more like, well, you can go out of your home, you can still get food delivered to your place. All restaurants were, of course, closed down. So it was not that much of a feeling that I'm, being on a cage or on
Right.
my, yeah.
And just for listeners, you'd mentioned before you're by Shanghai, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I'm like it's like 250 kilometers from Shanghai, but if you could take
Right. Yeah.
the metro, the fast speed train, it only takes like 24 minutes.
Wow, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Now, how is it now in terms of the COVID and the restrictions and the rules where you are?
Well, China actually did something pretty cool. I think it's very cool. In like 2 months after the outbreak, they created this system in one of their apps that it gives you a code, a green, yellow, and red code. So if for the
Yeah.
past 14 days you have not been in a high risk or medium risk area, then you're fine. You're green, and you're gonna get this code request in every single place you go. So the mall, the restaurants, any place, they were gonna check your code and your temperature. And well, we still have to use mask outside.
Mm-hmm.
So, but life is like it kept going. It kept
Yes.
going.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there was that adaptation piece.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. This is going to sound kind of extreme, and I apologize, but I really do think that Western countries, like the one that I'm in,
Mm-hmm.
if we keep going about it with a closed mind, like, I'm an anti-masker and I have my rights, and, I'm going to call my lawyer, right? That is a road to oblivion.
Right.
We have got to change the way that we approach the problems that we're facing today. I mean, this is the 21st century, and the direction that we're going right now is, for one, it's unprecedented. And for two, you can't go back.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean? We can't go back to the way it was in 1984.
That's right. That's right. And I've seen people think like, oh, when COVID passed, what if it never goes away? And they kind of think that their life is on pause.
Yeah.
So when I'm gonna be able to travel again, I'm gonna do this and that. And when COVID is just like finally controlled, then yeah, I'm gonna keep moving with my life. What?
Yeah.
You're waiting for something that is out of your control.
Yeah.
When
do you start living your life?
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, right?
Yeah. But I think that's a very interesting thing, because you either exist or you live.
Hell yeah.
Existing, you're just like making a living.
Amen.
Yeah, watching Netflix, drinking on the weekends.
Yeah.
So many things that shut off your mind.
Well, and let me tell you, when I lived that life of surviving versus thriving, I was the world's greatest partier. You ask anybody when I was in my 20s, oh, Rob, man, he's so much fun. But I was cross-eyed. I couldn't even remember what the hell I was saying. Right. And now I'm at this point, and it's like, man, a lot of those people, they're not even in my life anymore, because for one, I'm not that distraction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing what I want to do, and they're like, WTF? Like, so COVID has been for many people kind of this, it's been very difficult, yes, but kind of a hidden disguise for us to stop distracting ourselves and return to where we need to go to find ourselves. And really the internet, it's like a new country, because I'm talking to you and I've talked to people from Nigeria, Kenya, all over the world, and I'm closer to those people than I've ever been to that many people in my own country. Right. Yeah. Think about how wild that is.
Yeah. It makes so much sense. That's why why I think that now more than ever you can start to define your own culture, because it's 10 a.m. here in China today. It's probably night in Canada, and we have this strong connection,
Yeah.
which probably without COVID we would never be able to get. So we have to be thankful. Thank you,
Yes.
COVID, for this. You
Yeah.
know, change your mind.
Adapt.
Yeah, adapt.
Adapt, or I know this sounds harsh. Adapt or die.
Yes, totally.
Either to be dead mentally, you might as well be dead. To be dead spiritually, you might as well be dead.
Yeah, yeah,
And you see a lot of people in the world, and it really does break my heart. They live like they're victims of their own existence.
mm-hmm.
But and there's multiple privileges in the world. I have many, but even just to be alive and not dead, that's a privilege.
Yeah,
You still have time with your story.
Yeah, I call that like victimhood.
Yeah.
And Robert, I was in that place also. Like China, they locked down the country because of COVID, and I have not been able to go back to Costa Rica for almost 2 years now. So back then, I was also like, oh my God, if I leave China, which I can, then I won't be able to come back to my life here, to my work here. So it's been a while. It's been a while. And I was spending so much time thinking of what I'm missing, the trips that I could have made, all the plans that I had for, for holidays. But instead of what I was missing out on my life here in China, so I had to turn around and just start to live here, enjoy it while I'm here.
So is this the new you? Is this where you belong?
Yeah. What do I call home?
Right.
What do I call home? This morning when I was journaling, I was like, oh, I'm so grateful that I'm going to be able to go back home. And I was like, well, is that really going back, or going back to the country that I was born into? Because, right now I'm in China, but next year, who knows? I already have plans to move out. So I can create my own home, wherever I am.
Yeah. Is it back to who you are, or is it back to what you know?
Yeah.
Because home, I mean, what if you could be at home anywhere in the world?
Yeah, home for me shouldn't be defined by your ability to get a visa to live there and to pay taxes or less taxes. It shouldn't be defined by that.
It's your ability. I think, to me, it's your ability to be with yourself.
Yeah.
And anywhere in the world. So tell us a little bit more about your show, Scoop Me Out, and which is funny because I recall that as a very different name, and I was like, oh, okay, that's definitely not what that is. Tell us a little bit about your show.
Yeah, sure. So in my show now, I'm talking with expats, who either went outside their country because of work.
Right.
Most of them is because of work, or just because they wanted to take a leisure trip and they find out that, well, I like it here. I'm going to stay. I'm going to make this my new home. So I have been talking with people like the other day I met this girl from England who she went to Sri Lanka when she was 16 and she fell in love with the country. She has been living there for almost 8 years now. She has her family there, her business there. So I found this so powerful. How is it possible that someone from a different country can adapt to the new regulations and get to know their new, like, someone else that it was inside them that maybe without going outside they wouldn't have found out.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that goes back to, we can go on vacations or we can go traveling. And to me, they're quite different. A vacation is like, I'm going to go to a Mexican resort and I'm going to do things that are comfortable. That's a vacation. And then traveling is when you go places and it's not comfortable. Right. And not to say it's not enjoyable, but it's you're not getting what you want. You know, it's
Right.
not under your terms. It's not really under your control or power.
Yeah.
You're kind
Yeah.
of just, you're making yourself vulnerable,
Yeah. It's
but
not on your square, you know?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And by making yourself vulnerable, you
Yeah.
actually are making yourself stronger. Right.
Hmm. Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
because I do find that the culture here in the West, based on my experiences, can be
Mm.
quite exhausting. You
Mm.
know, there's so much kind of expectation and, you know, you got to do this and stuff and all these shoulds.
Mm.
Whereas when you, again, when you live your own story, you know your purpose,
Mm.
you can actually be a lot more energized.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. I think that we need to start moving away from what should I have done? What if I do this or that? And start living more like, fuck yeah. And there's no regrets, you know?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
now? Instead
What?
of like, why didn't I do that? Like, dude, do it now.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
we create excuses all the time. And it's like, I honestly think we create excuses because we're afraid of what could actually come.
Yeah. I I kind of wanted to say that we learn to be afraid, to have
Mm,
fear of those things. Because Robert, humans, we are born with only two fears: fear of falling and fear of sounds. That's it. Everything else is a fear that we have learned. And that means that you can also unlearn to have that fear.
right.
Yeah. But are we getting a way to unlearn that?
Yeah. Are we becoming stronger or are we becoming more guarded and thus a little bit weaker?
That's true. Yeah.
Well, Jorge, thank you so much for being on the show. I just looking at the time and
Hmm.
we're at 52 minutes, which flew by. So my friend, we got to talk again.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so
Okay.
much for having me.
Thank you.